Hey, guess what? This episode, we're going to do another back to chopping it up. And you don't want to miss this one because I have to read my book and get the exact language here. We are sharing the screen with the Duke of Chigwell, His Royal Highness, Highness Wesley Hawthorne Harrison Linden the Third.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you for my title. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've had so many people message me going, "Oh, I didn't know you were a duke," or I didn't. And I'm like, I'm not. It's not actually true, but they don't get the fact that you Americans think that all of us Brits are royalty or noble.
Yeah, the whole royalty thing, I'll never, never, never understand it. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we
So
like
how you
it.
been, my friend? You look fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, good. Good. I'm doing well. Enjoying the freezing temperatures here in the UK, in London, but
Mm.
great to be on chatting to you.
Yeah, and for people, by the way, who are newer to the podcast and haven't seen one of these or heard one of these, it's what I call chopping it up. I just get on with one of my near dear friends in the space and we have a conversation and we don't direct anything to the audience really. It's just we have a conversation and you get to eavesdrop and we find that they're usually packed with knowledge bombs and truth bombs and really $1 million tips. So that's where we go with this. So let's jump in. You know, I was thinking a cool place to start would be would be Bulgaria because I have a big developing team there. You've been working with a client there for a long time that I know of. We both do a lot of work in that market. I just came back from there. I felt, I told a couple of my close friends, had this event for like 100 people. Okay, this wasn't 20,000 people, 100 people. So I had this event. It's a kind of a pre-launch, find the Padawan Jedis and let them train and be ready for a launch, which will be in a few months. And so with 98 people in the room, I told, I don't know, four or five people I know, I think this is the best event I have ever done in my career. And I felt like this will move the dial more than any, because that's what you look for when you do an event. We don't just fly around burning up jet fuel to do events, right? You always have an objective for it. You want specific outcomes for your time and your travel. And because it's brutal, the travel part of our business, it can be. And I thought, this is going to move the dial more than anything ever. And it's now been,
So that's some going, considering some of the events you've done, the size of events you've done.
exactly. This is why the people I'm saying that to are just shocked. Like, are you kidding me? Why? What makes you say that? And I just felt the energy in the room. I felt that my presentations, I did like four, because it was Friday night, all day Saturday. So I had a lot of sessions. Um, and I felt they were the best sessions I had could remember doing. And I felt like, I kind of got out of the routine during COVID. And then I started doing live events again, but I wasn't in the field. I was doing corporate and consulting and things. Then I went back in the field, like whatever, 5 months ago. So now I'm doing events for my teams again, my people, and I'm doing recruiting opportunity presentations.
Mm.
And I feel like, oh my God, I still got it, because we had actually done an opportunity presentation and people were just crawling naked with over broken glass to throw their credit card and sign up. And I thought, well, I guess I still got it. I got a little something left in the tank. And I just felt like I was able to convey to those people the opportunity that a pre-launch scenario could really be. And I felt like this is just going to move the dial.
Mm.
So 2.5 weeks later, I can conclusively say, oh my God, it moved the fucking dial. Wait a minute. Do I have it? Okay. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to record. It just moved the fucking dial. Um, and so there were things, and I had one of the founders there. He did an amazing session. I had a leader there from another line who wanted to come. And since she was there, I was like, hey, let's put you on stage, share your story and your experience. Her name's Nina. She's a really powerful woman who comes from a Muslim country with Shiite law that, and she decided not to wear a burqa or a headpiece. And she had this terribly abusive husband, and she left him, and he came after her, and he ended up going to jail. He got murdered like a couple of months ago. And she's going through all this, raising kids. Some of her kids have special needs, a couple of them. And her story's incredible, right? So I was like, just share your truth. So she was so impactful. But here's the thing, and I think you could relate to, and I want to hear your take on too. I just feel, I introduced network marketing back in the 90s to Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Macedonia, these, and Lithuania and Latvia. I was early pioneer in those countries. I've been working in, Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine for decades. Um, and I just found that the people who were born and raised in these socialist countries and communist countries, when you give them the opportunity for free enterprise,
Yeah.
they go just crazy with it in a way that I don't see in the UK. I don't see it in the United States. I don't see it in Australia even. A lot of the first world economies, I just think people, there's so many side gig opportunities. The economic potential is so lucrative. We live in the greatest time in human history. And I think there's so many people in the first world markets that take it for granted. And when I just, I would go to Kazakhstan, or I would go to, like in Croatia, right? I launched Croatia right in the middle of the Civil War.
Mm.
We didn't know it was going to happen, and we were going ahead, and then it happened.
Mm.
And so I would do an opportunity presentation in Zagreb, and I would have people who lived 40, 50 kilometers away, but they had to drive 8 hours to get there because they had to go around enemy occupied territory, war zones. Um, and I would do other meetings, and people would drive 5 days, sleeping in their car every night. They would take 60-hour train rides just to, hopefully get a picture or get a book signed or something. I mean, and I see that in Bulgaria, all those old Tito countries. I think they're so excited about the chance to build their dreams that they just go crazy with it. I mean, what do you see there?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I'm UK based, London based. I've been in my direct selling business for nearly 20. By the time you launch this, I'll have been in 27 years in one company, because that's about a week away. Um, and and we're UK only, okay? So I'm very used to the UK market. maybe 15, 16 years ago, I got invited to speak, as you mentioned, for a company in Bulgaria, and really liked what you've just described there. That kind of hunger and excitement around the possibility that they perhaps grew up never thinking was even remotely possible, because that, they were living through different times. And as it then happened, that company invited me back, and then again, and then I started consulting for them. It's just a side thing, just trying to help them out. My main focus is my company, but I've been doing that for 15 years now. It's like they're like, it's like a cousin. It's like good family member. So when we ended up doing the mastermind event a couple of months back, in which you've been like the mainstay for many 20 years or something, the keynote opened. We did it in Bulgaria, in Sofia. We had 300 or so of my team from England or UK go over there, and I was giving them advice about where to go and where the great bars and shops and restaurants and everything. And they're like, "How do you know?" I was like, "I've been to this place 60 or 70 times. I don't know. I've lost count. It's maybe not 100 yet, but it's getting there." And I had people look at me a little bit like, "Oh, why have you come back so many times?" And once they'd been themselves, they started to get it, because they saw what I saw about a country, a people that are hungry, do have a desire, know they can build a better life for their family, and can see it within our opportunity, where they're not being controlled by government or employer or anything else. And people totally got it. They absolutely loved Sofia and Bulgaria and the people there. And that's why I've kept going back, because I like seeing people that are hungry. And like you say, in the UK, look, it's not exclusively true in the UK. I'm sure it's not exclusively true in the US, but we have certain types of parachute systems around social welfare and other things like that, healthcare in the UK, where, people can get by. They don't have to be hungry. They can just about get by. Doesn't mean they're going to live rich. Doesn't mean they're going to live prosperous. They can get by. It means they can be lazy. And there are countries where that doesn't exist. So Bulgaria being one of them, and obviously plenty of others that you've mentioned as well.
Yeah, people don't know until they travel. Well, travel is the greatest world perspective it can bring you, but people don't know there's countries you live in, your one of your legs gets cut off by a train. Okay, that's your problem, you know. So
Yeah.
it's $800,000 worth of medical bills. Well, that's your problem. And there is no uh, access in places and no laws that say there should be wheelchair ramps and there should be that. It's survival of the fittest.
Yeah, I mean, we have in the UK, healthcare is free. You can pay for it as well, like you can have private, but it's free. It's a right, and it's been a right for a lot of years now. And it's like part of everyone's being, that we have free healthcare. But you see people on Facebook or hear them in the conversations in cafes or pubs that, oh, I had to wait at my doctor's 15 minutes, or I phoned up for an appointment and they kept me on hold for 12 minutes. And you think, oh, you've never left this country, have you? You've never tried to even get a paracetamol or a plaster in some parts of the world.
Yeah, it's true.
We're spoiled by it.
So what you bring to the table you want to chat on this go around? Is this
Well,
our second chop or our third one?
this is our second one.
Yeah.
Our first one was like, it was like nearly 3 hours.
It was like what?
It was nearly 3 hours, our first one.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't think it was going to be that long, and I didn't realize it was that long until it finished.
Yeah.
But people seem to love it. So one of the things it probably links into this, and it's a phrase I use a lot in the UK, but also when I speak in Bulgaria, is about this concept. And it's something that I heard on one of your audio cassette tapes. This is aging me as well as you. Audio cassette tapes 20 something years ago, about the concept of being unimportant to the creation of your income. Unimportant to the creation. And I remember you saying, on the tape, you unimportant the creation of your income. I like that phrase so much, I'm going to say it again. And then you said it again. And it was really powerful. It was almost that sentence that really got me to understand the concept of this type of business and leverage and lifestyle freedom. And the reason I like to still use that a lot is because I feel like with some of the dire economic situations that so many of our countries are in at the moment, and recessions and credit crunch and cost of living crisis, and call it whatever you like, that we have perhaps moved more towards people not losing their home. Like it's become more about not losing your home, not having to borrow on credit cards, or not having to sell your house and downsize, not having to being able to afford the groceries. Now, I'm not saying that isn't important, but I do feel, I don't know how you feel about this, that in our space, we might have forgotten that there is a big picture to this as well. There is that chance to live prosperously and have the lifestyle that you didn't perhaps imagine. Obviously, it has to start with being able to afford your groceries and keep your house. But long term, there is a bigger picture. Do you think we're losing that sight of it?
I have mixed feelings on this because I still see, like when I go to Kazakhstan, I'm like, oh my God, this is like looking at myself in the 90s. When I go to Egypt, I did a thing there, like 8,000 people. And just, they're all coming up at the break and taking selfies and getting book signed and, sharing the ones who speak English. And I'm like, oh my God, this is me in the 90s. And it's just all about the Lambos and the Ferraris and the babes in the bikinis, and the recruiting videos are showing people flashing off $100 bills like crazy, and the yachts and the private jets and the bougie Facebook, Instagram, all of those posts. And I'm like, God, I moved away from that shit 15 years ago. How is this? Is this still really work?
Yeah, yeah.
And it does still really work in those developing economies. And I have to say, I have a client company that I work with here in the United States that has been around for about 15 years. And they kind of, the founders of that company came from some of those materialistic companies, and they still do that. And I was kind of shocked with probably the top 10 income earners all do that. When I do an event with them, it's like going to one of my old events where, because there's 5 Ferraris, there's 3 Lambos, there's a couple Bentleys, there's a couple Rolls Royces. They're all, everybody gives the valet $100, put all the supercars in the front. Shit that I did, back in 95 and whatever, and I stopped doing. For one, because, well, let's be honest. One, because I matured a little. Uh, Two, because I became more comfortable in my own skin and I didn't feel so insecure that I needed to show everybody how rich I was. Number three, for security, it just started to get real dicey in terms of the kind of personal security and safeguards that I had to take. And but most of all, because I felt like the market had moved, and that the message out there of, hey, let's get you out of debt. I just saw a study last week, at least here in the US, average person has $17,000 worth of credit card debt. Most of that, and they don't even know it, but most of them are literally paying 29.97 or 29.99%.
Yeah.
Even if they get a card that says it's 14% or 16%, there's just all kind of fine print. And it says, oh, if you ever go over the limit, then we have the right to raise your interest rate, or oh, if you ever send a payment 24 hours late, we have the right to jack up your interest rate. And they send these little forms in, 8 font type with 20,000 words on it that obviously nobody could or would read or understand. And so they're paying 30% on this debt. And here in the States, the college uh, debt is, many times worse than that. And so I found a really good space with going after that dynamic, after that cohort, that demographic of, and I moved much more my recruiting toward Gen X, Y, Z. I push a lot about social entrepreneurs and being one and becoming wealthy by doing good. Um, but so, but I do think, at least, I don't know if I'm hearing you, what you're saying correctly, interpreting it, but I do feel like maybe after all this drama and trauma of the pandemic and getting by and making do and settling, maybe people are ready to kind of break out and get crazy again. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, actually, I wasn't. I am probably the person who is most pleased that we've moved more to a place that is about experiences, not materialistic things, not going into debt and all that kind of stuff, and having that little bit extra, having that security, being able to breathe, not worrying who's knocking at the door and all that stuff. Um, I think where I'm heading with that. So I'm thrilled that you got rid of the Lambo concept, and my company's completely got rid of it. Most of our recruiting materials are all about the nurse that's earning an extra £500 a month, or the single mum that's earning £800 a month, or so and so that's making their mortgage payments. All about that. I I think my main point around it is that there is still an opportunity to live a lifestyle of choice, or a more prosperous lifestyle. Like, people don't have to just stay just covering their mortgage or just earning an extra 500. If they can accomplish that, there is a chance to live bigger. And I wonder whether people have forgotten to talk about that bit. I definitely don't want us going back to the Lambos outside. To be honest, I fought that for years in my company and probably got a little bit of flack in the earlier days from some of the people that liked the idea of showing off how big their car or watch was or whatever. And certainly the way I live is not living in a kind of, despite the title we give me, is not living like the mansion lifestyle, but more just living lifestyle, like living life. But I feel like now I'm having to remind people that get comfortable with, inverted commas, just covering their mortgage or just staying out of debt, or just that there is a bigger picture too. There is a bigger opportunity too. And that doesn't mean $1 million a month or $1 million a year. It can just mean going from 500 to 1,000 or to 1,500 or to 5,000 or whatever.
Yeah, one of the ways my experience along this is paralleling this topic is, so I made this conscious decision when I got back in the field this year that, hey, I gotta help the millennials. They're just screwed. The way the financial system is set up, it has never been a worse time financially to be a millennial.
Yeah.
And it should be the exact opposite, right? With what has happened in tech, which is the way the internet has democratized everything and knocked down all the barriers and all the doorkeepers, the gatekeepers. And this should be the greatest time. So here you're a millennial and you could trade on your Robinhood app and you can get this on that app. And you don't have to own a car because you got your Lyft and your rideshare and your Uber and you whatever. But yet the wealth has transferred so dramatically to the baby boomer generation.
Yeah.
And just if you compare apples versus apples, this is the first time in half a century that somebody who's 29 or 30 years old is not making more money than their parents were at 29 or 30 years old.
Yeah. And still
If
living in their house.
still living in their house, the number of 30-year-old
Yeah.
virgins living in their mom's basement is astounding.
Yeah.
Um, and if you look at what percent of their income they need to get a college education, worse than ever. Again, apples to apples. If you compare, okay, what percentage of your income do you need to buy a house? Apples for apples, they're screwed. If you compare how easy is it for you to get financing to buy a house? Apples for apples, they're screwed. So as part of this jihad of mine to rescue these X, Y, and Z generation people, because I feel honestly, I'm the prosperity guy. I celebrate prosperity, and I started off broke, poor. I was, in poverty, and and I've become one of the wealthiest people in, the top 1% of the population. And I still, as the prosperity guy, I'm like, you know what? I feel a little guilty because
I,
I don't think people have even though, I'd like to say I'm a self-made man, high school dropout, blah, blah. I really am the great American success story. And I also am not so arrogant to understand that I did get breaks along the way. There were people who believed in me. There were safety net programs that helped me out. I was on food stamps for 4 months, which is a government program here, a welfare program to give you money to buy groceries. Okay. I know what that is to be waiting in the supermarket line, and then they're going to ask for the money and you give those certificates, and what are the people behind you in line thinking about you, and I
yeah.
want to crawl into the floor, and you know what I mean. I've been through all that. So but I look at Gen Z, and I look most particular the crypto bros.
Yeah.
There's just this dynamic of mostly Gen YZ men who were introduced to Robinhood and trading apps, and then that turned into getting sucked into a sketchy Forex deal, and that turned getting sucked into a sketchy MLM crypto scam deal like Omega Pro or OneCoin or any of those other ones.
Data domain or whatever it was.
And meanwhile, here politically, and I think there's some of this there in the UK, but so we've had this. I was watching there's a documentary on CNN about James Carville, who's the political consultant who successfully managed the Bill Clinton
Yeah.
campaign. He's a rock star of politics. I mean, the man knows politics, he knows human behavior. And he was getting ostracized all this last year because he's a Democrat, very liberal Democrat. And he's just saying this woke shit is killing us. This defund the police are the three stupidest words that have ever been said in human history. And this we've got to, he said, what were the words? He said, too many something women, but like preachy, maybe it was preachy, too many preachy females in the Democratic Party. So of course they, everybody wanted to ostracize him and cancel him. But he was really speaking to a truth that there is this whole um, cohort of women on the left who want to talk about all the pronouns and all the woke issues and all the stuff to such a degree where you can't get anything passed. You can't win elections. And if you can't win elections, you can't help people. If you really believe that your ideology provides better for the people who need it, well, you got to win the fucking election. And he was saying all along, Joe Biden can't win this election. Joe Biden is too old. You can't run this 80-year-old doddering, feeble, senile guy and expect to win the election. And, the Democratic Party wanted to kill him. But he's like 72 now. He's done his thing. Nobody can touch him. He's got, you know, his version of fuck you money, I would imagine. And he's just, and that comes into because these guys are the ones most susceptible to the Lambos and the Ferrari and that messaging. And I have to somehow reach them and teach them that's not where they want to go.
Yeah.
And I feel that if I was shown OneCoin when I was 23 years old, I would have joined so quick it would have made your head spin because I wouldn't have known the difference.
Yeah.
And they don't know. And as soon as I went to Crypto Bros, I could see you were animated and so what were you thinking?
What I was thinking was, and I don't have data like evidence on this, but where some of these crypto bros, where some of these traders domain, Omega Pros, OneCoins, or whatever else, have they won or were they winning people, particularly younger people? Because when I was 20 something, my dream was to buy my first property. That was like a realistic, but it wasn't an unrealistic dream. It was realistic. And within years of doing my business, I managed to get a deposit to buy my first place. And then
How old were you when
23,
you bought it? You bought the first place?
23. Yeah. And then my dream was to have, in those days, it was like encouraged, like God, if you buy a second property, you really made it. Like as in a rental property, you build a portfolio. And so that was my next dream. And I think I did that 2 or 3 years later. And then another
That's
one.
amazing. That's amazing that you had that foresight at that age.
Yeah, but that seemed, but it was real. It was possible though. It was realistic. It wasn't out of the reach. Now, if you're 25 years old and as you say, you're living in your mother's spare room or basement or wherever else, and you know that the average cost of a property in the city centre of London or Birmingham or Manchester or New York is probably going to be like 500,000 plus, unless you want to be in the roughest area. You just know that your salary is like, you've got to have a 20 times salary to get even close to getting a mortgage for that. And it's not going to happen. So therefore, does that make you riper right now for these crypto scams or forex scams that make people think they can be rich? Is this their version of this is how I can get ahead? Because until you said that, I have probably looked down a bit on the people that get involved in that, particularly the ones who should know better, who are like, know that they're top of a Ponzi and they're trying to cream off people that can't afford it. But maybe actually you're right. Maybe if I was 20 something and there was no chance of affording a property and I knew my future living arrangements was either going to be in my mum's spare room or in a house share with 4 other people like a university student would have to, maybe I would have been more open to that.
Well, it's like I was talking to our mutual acquaintance, Mr. Jonak, and he said, well, Trump is like a figure that has never been seen before in human history. Like, no, you just don't know history. But Trump is just the latest, like for me, Trump is just the latest version of Senator Joe McCarthy, who back in it's probably the 50s, where he was the one started the communists there, that the communists were in government and he would create these lists and blackball people and they'd throw them out. And is what we would today call cancel culture or debanking people, right? That was the version of that. And there's always been demagoguery, demagogues like this. And they come around every generation, right? And so the thing that I think people don't understand about human psychology, if you look at what's happening in Argentina and you look what's happening in the UK, the US, France, Canada, what we see is that when the more chaotic things become, the more people want authoritarians. They want a benevolent dictator. I remember I did an event and I had a guy there from El Salvador right after his name is escaping me, took over. And so he had just done the thing where he rounded up every gang member in El Salvador and hosed them all, stripped them naked, hosed them all down with fire hose, threw them all in prison. And if you have a contact of a gang member in your phone, they'll throw you in prison with it. It's the most, I mean, just, and he proudly bills himself as a benevolent dictator, and he jokes about it, and so I'm sitting next to one of the guys who joined our coaching program that I do with Jaime Lokier, and we were having dinner, and I'm like, well, what's going on with? Oh, he says, oh man, I love it. It's just so much safer. You go anywhere in the street, and that's what, when it's gets out of control, people want a figure like Donald Trump. They want a figure like Milei, or however you say his name, in Argentina. And if you look at, the political climate in all these Western democracies, they've all thrown out the incumbents. And it's just time where people just say, just lob a grenade into it, just blow up the system. And I think that's what the crypto scams and the Forex scams and the other Ponzi schemes are doing with those crypto bros. Is they're just saying, you're screwed. You're never going to be able to buy a house. You're never going to get credit. You're never going to pay off your college debt. What do you think you're going to do? You're going to work your way up from the drive-through at Chick-fil-A and get to be shift supervisor and make $16 an hour instead of $15 an hour. And where are you going to be 10 years from now? Now you're going to be the store manager. And you know what? You still won't be able to buy a house. You're still going to be upside down on your car. You're still going to have your college debt, if they could even go to college. So what do you got to lose? Just launch the grenade. And I think that's just as Trump and the strong man woman types everywhere have been so successful doing that politically, I think you see the same thing in the network marketing space, where these, and it should be clear, these are not network marketing companies. These are Ponzi schemes masquerading as network marketing companies. But yeah, I think they're going in and telling them, listen, bro, you're screwed. Your best shot is with us. And, put yourself in this Lambo. And they're buying it up.
We have another mutual friend in Turkey, leader, a lovely leader, Nasan and Aisha, a lovely couple. And he was telling me that because of the what do you call it, the inflation in Turkey, which has been like crazy the last couple of years.
Hyper intensive.
Yeah. The cost of like a Range Rover, like a good Range Rover, is in like the hundreds of thousands. I can't remember the number, like 500 or 600 or 700,000, like crazy money. Like for the same in the UK, it might be 100, 120,000, I don't know. And he was saying that you can drive, as long as you've got the right accreditation, you can drive or you can fly or walk to Sofia or to Bulgaria from there, from Turkey, and you can buy that same car for like half or a third of the price and drive it back. But the problem with him doing that is it will have a Bulgarian, it'll be obvious it's from Bulgaria, it'll have the number plate or whatever. And then the challenge he has, his view is, well, it's smart. Why would I not save 2/3 if I can? The challenge he has is that his team or people in other businesses will go, oh, he's not doing very well. He's had to go and buy the car cheaper elsewhere. I mean, I love the Turks. We had a great event there last year, but I think that's something that they need to work on, that kind of
Oh
thing.
man. Jaime and I put together a program, financial literacy
Yeah.
for network marketers. It's like a 10 module or 12 module course. And we go into what to do when you really start to have money. Because most of the people who create big success in our space are like me. They had no financial training or knowledge or experience whatsoever. And we just do all the stupid money stuff and we buy all the $50,000 watches and don't pay the taxes and don't set aside for retirement because we figure, the money's just going to keep getting bigger and better forever. And so we did a training on it, and my $1 million tip in there was the most, the single number one most prosperity secret you can employ is not caring what other people think or not buying things to impress other people.
Mm-hmm.
I love my home, right? You see that behind me, got some album covers from my youthful days that meant something to me, and I turned them into art. And, I have this beautiful place, but, I have friends that they have servant quarters. Well, maybe not this square feet, but I mean, they have pretty good servant, but they have servant quarters, right? Which I don't have. And they're like, dropping little nuggets like, why don't I have servant had, quarters and a staff? And it's just, I don't want people in my house. I don't want a staff, right? I've got a housekeeper who does what she does. And you know what I mean? But I don't, and I'm driving. I made a decision a couple of years ago where I just said, okay, I got to get this materialism under control. I am not allowed to buy any watches for 2 years, any clothes for 2 years, any cars for 2 years, and I listed like 10 things. And I just told myself, I'm going to go in my closet and rediscover what I already have. I've got 120 pair of sneakers, but I always wore the same three or four because they're the ones on the first shelf when I go in. So I said, you know what I do? Every month I'm going to rearrange the shelves. So now there'll be, when I first walk in, there'll be these selection of sneakers. And so I'll wear more of those. And I'm going to rearrange the watch drawer and I'm going to, you know what I mean? And that is, so I don't know. I have friends who are, really wealthy. They have butlers and major domos and that kind of stuff. And they're like, it's like a status thing that they're just letting me know, but it doesn't have power over me anymore. There would have been a time in my life where I would have had to one up them, right? And I would be maniacal and do whatever the next big deal I had to do. And I don't feel that anymore.
But it's great because I think when you're living like that and you're always having to look over the fence to see what other people have got and then one up them, you're never at peace. You're always
Never.
it's
There's
of
always a guy with a bigger yacht.
course. And I have to tell you, I came to your apartment I can't remember was it 2017, 2018? I can't remember. You, Art, and myself spent a couple of days hanging around in Miami. And it's a lovely apartment. I mean, it's a beautiful apartment. I don't know, is it 2,000 square foot, 1,500? I don't know. It's a
I
great
don't
size.
know.
It's
I
a
don't
it's a
know.
nice size, lovely views, etc., etc. But that was actually I didn't have said this to you at the time, but because of how I now live, I can tell you this. In That was quite inspiring for me because in my mind, I think I probably thought you lived, and I knew you lived alone. I thought, oh, but he still lives in a big 7-bedroom mansion or something, you know, and it'll be the most impressive one on the street, and it'll have, you know, um, yeah, servant quarter. Yeah, I just kind of had that perception. And although I try not to live that materialistic life, there was probably a bit of me that thought, oh yeah, one day I'll have to have a 7-bedroom mansion and servant quarters. And in the UK, they're either called apartments or they're called flats. I don't know if you call them flats in America, but I'd never had permission to go and live in an apartment again until I came to yours. The first place I got when I was 23 was an apartment. But then I
Uh-huh.
did what everybody in the UK does, which is get a house. You move from an apartment to a house. So I bought a nice sized house, detached, little stream, like all this got water, you know, and all that kind of thing. And I wouldn't say I was particularly happy, but when I came to yours and I saw, oh my God, he lives in an apartment. You can live in really nice apartments. It gave me permission because in the UK, it's a bit like a flat or an apartment is where you start and then you go big. And then if you want to downsize when you're 70, once your kids have moved out and the blah, 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 and then you go back to an apartment. I saw your apartment and I've skipped years of misery of buying houses. And in the 2 years ago, we moved into a lovely apartment, 2,000 square foot, nice estate. It's got a private garden. It's got lovely communal gardens. So it's still lovely. It's got garage. We've got 3 garages. Like, so we've got the stuff you need, but we don't have the house. We don't have to worry about that. If the roof caves in, that's not our problem. That's the, you know, if it security, we don't have to worry about that. You've got that sort. So it's all sorted. And we love living like that. We love that community living and not spending every penny that we own on a big house that we don't need just to impress other people. And where I'm going with that is that I get what you're saying because I still have people, when I say to people, oh, yeah, my apartment, blah, 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 they go, oh, you live in an apartment? Like, they're surprised because
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
still that status thing that says surely you have to have a massive mansion like the biggest like Buckingham Palace or something. And I'm trying to I use that, I'm quite proud of it, to re-educate people to say no, 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 we have loads of lovely holidays, and you know I spend great time with my nephew, and I go and see my dad in Barcelona 4 or 5 or 6 times a year. Like, I don't need the big house. I got a lovely apartment and I love it. And so that was actually from coming to yours that really made me think, recalibrate my thinking on it doesn't now have to be the next big house and then the next big house after that. It can just be find a lovely apartment in a lovely area. Don't tie up all your money on heating a huge house that you're only living in 2 rooms of.
Yeah, and I've been really successful with real estate because I have a good knack for finding areas that are on the coming up, and I buy a place and I rip it down to the studs, and I do it the way I want, and then I sell it, and I've really made out well doing that, and so I kind of caught myself doing that here again, like, wow, yeah, I could, because I think I could probably clear between 400 and 600,000 profit if I sold my unit now. And so I was thinking about that. And then I was like, I don't know why I'm thinking that because I'm really happy here and I want to stay here. So where do you see it next time you're here? I just
Mm.
did some new lighting. I did some moving around. I redid, I got some different artwork. And there was stuff like that I stopped in when the pandemic happened. I hadn't put up the whatever you call that wall behind the stove and the backsplash and the bathroom vanity, some stuff. You know, now I'm like doing that stuff, and but I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make myself crazy about this. I'm going to schedule one thing at a time. And when I'm going on trips and I, get a contractor I really trust and like, okay, here's the keys. I'm going to be in Milan for 6 days. I want all of this demo shit done while I'm gone. I want all the dust out of the apartment, and whatever. And Um, so I'm really at peace here. And you know what I wrote about in the Radical Rebirth book, you know, what I like to call divine discontent,
Mm.
where I can still live in gratitude, but not be in stasis. I can live in gratitude and still have things I want to do, have, and become. And but it's not chasing the bigger yacht, because unless there's only one guy in the world who has the biggest yacht, okay? And if it
Yeah.
ain't you, you're just gonna keep chasing and chasing and chasing. And
Yeah.
then when you are the guy with the biggest yacht, there's 200 billionaires gunning for you to, they're gonna be the guy with the biggest yacht.
Last year, 2023, we went to India, we went to Maldives, we went on a cruise around Asia. Not all at like different times, of the year, and various other European breaks. And I would put a lot of money betting. I haven't thought about this in this way until now. I would bet a lot of money that if we were living in a big seven-bedroom mansion, but only living in two of the rooms, but having to heat it and worry about it, and also looking over our shoulder all the time at, oh, we're going to have to get a bigger one now because so and so's got a nicer one, or theirs is newer, or they've got a different kitchen. You'd have second thoughts about some of those experiences in holidays. You think, well, do we really need to go on that cruise? We could maybe we've got to save a bit of money because we need another bathroom, or we need a different kitchen, or we need whatever, and it's free. I find that freedom. For me, that's freedom. Like that's free. Your mind is free to enjoy the things you want to enjoy rather than the things that you think are going to impress other people.
The other thing is just the maintenance and the upkeep. Because I had a home at one time, you know, a house, as you would call it, and the pool guy and the landscaper guy and the whatever, I just really know for my kind of lifestyle, I just turn the key and I go. And, you know, I had a place here, I had a place in San Diego, I had a place in Sydney. At one point, I had a place in Costa Rica, San Jose. And now I'm going to do that again. You know, I downsized when the pandemic happened, but you know, I'm thinking now, do I want to go back, get another place in Sydney again or Sandy or wherever? And I'll do that because I love Miami. I love my home. I just don't love from July to September when it's 98 degrees with 99% humidity every day. So I want another place again to that I can go to during those times. But if for sure it'll be a condo, for sure it won't be to impress anybody. It'll
Mm.
be my other home there that I can go to when it's too hot here. And
Mm.
when you liberate yourself from that need to impress other people, it's like 100x your prosperity. You just don't have to play those games anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And that probably circles nicely back to the thing I was saying about unimportant to the creation of your income, irrespective of what level that is. If you're miserable all the time because you're always chasing another leader that's you think's got a slightly bigger dog or cat or house or car or driveway or whatever, that's not freedom.
It's
Uh,
not freedom.
I remember the first time I properly met you at the mastermind event, which was 11 years ago. So, I don't know, 2013-ish. I asked you at the VIP dinner, like, oh, so what's next for you, like outside of network marketing? And it was then when you said, "Oh, I've got a home here and a home there, and I want to get one in New York and one in London and one in Barcelona and one I can't remember where you named now, but you were definitely on that track then of buying all these big homes, and at the time that seemed like really aspirational. It's interesting how you've shifted.
Yeah, because it's again, it's the maintenance and the upkeep. I truthfully, I really wouldn't mind if I still had a home in 10 different places.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do it now for two reasons. Now I would like, no, it's just not good for the earth because all those resources sitting empty 90% of the time. And so I feel like, nah, that's not my, I'm not doing my, because I'm not the guy who rents my stuff out. I'm not the Airbnb guy, okay? I don't want nobody messing with my stuff, okay? I'm a private guy and I don't want, like uh, you ever, I don't think you were ever in my San Diego place, but I had this incredible apartment in the Gaslamp district. And, we'd have Comic Con come once a year there.
Yeah.
And there's movie studios who would have paid me $50,000 to rent my house, my, apartment for a week to give to some movie star or director or somebody that they would bring in for Comic Con. And I wouldn't even consider it. I don't want people in my place. And when Comic Con's in town, I want to be in town because I want to be
Yeah.
going to Comic Con. So it's like, but I know people that they rent theirs out and then they go stay somewhere cheaper just to make money. But I didn't need the money, so it wasn't about that. If I needed the money, that would have been a different thing. But it's just the upkeep. I still, you have to have somebody in every city who
Yeah.
can, because I always have a bunch of plants in my homes,
Yes.
right? My decor is circa Apple Store. I like chrome and glass and white. So I have very industrial techno kind of homes and they need earth energy. Like that's why I put this is Siberian white oak for my floor, right?
Mhm.
It's the literally has to be the most expensive floor in human history. It should be in the Guinness Book of World Records because I had to pay the guy like $50,000 to who did the installation. It was just ridiculous. So, and I don't say that to flex and be virtue signaling or whatever to all my wealthy friends. I was astounded at the but I wanted that earth energy, right? So I always have a lot of flowers and plants and things. And so you have to have someone who can water that. You have to have someone who's going to check the AC maintenance twice a year. And so it gets to be like when I went on the sabbatical, I just said, okay, and I sold off everything. It was like, okay, I don't feel like I own these things. I feel like these things own me.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
and now I'm like, okay, I'm okay with a couple of places, but it's not my dream anymore to have 10 because
Yeah.
it's for those reasons.
Back in 2016, I bought a place in south of Spain, a place called near Estepona. A lovely apartment in a quite small estate of, not like the highest high end, but well kept, like people that like things to be well kept. And it was great because I was going there, 2 or 3 times a month. It was really easy to fly there. This was pre-Brexit. Well, it wasn't quite pre-Brexit, but it was a lot of the changes that happened with Brexit. It was pre-pandemic. It was pre everything, and it was amazing. And I was going there 50, sometimes 20 times a year or something. Just for 2 days, sometimes 3 days. It was really easy. And then I stopped using it as much. And I've still got a little bit of me. I don't need the money, but I still got a little bit of me. There was like, I was the guy that said, well, hold on, I can advertise it and I could earn X amount, 1,000 a month by doing that in the times where I don't want to go, which includes the heat of July and August and June when it's like 45 centigrade or whatever. It's too hot for me. And I was doing that. And then it didn't take long for me to get very fed up of either the maintenance people not turning up and me getting people going, oh, I've lost my key and messaging me when I'd given them
Right,
someone else's
right,
number.
right.
And then I think the ultimate one for me was when I got a guy who sent a photo to me of his daughter's foot And apparently, she had walked through the apartment on day one barefoot, and he felt the bottom of her feet was too dirty for just one day walking around the apartment. And I'm like, oh my God, there isn't an amount of money in the world that makes me need people sending me pictures of their feet or their children's feet or anything like that. So I sent them a message saying, go to the ice cream, the dessert place in town, buy everyone in your family desserts. I'll send you money for that and have a lovely stay. And then I was like, I'm never renting it out ever again. Because I was like, I don't need the hassle, I don't need that. And I sold it because in the end, because it was a nice place, I wasn't using it. I'm paying out maintenance all the time for it. And because it was a nice place and some people actually lived there, they kept wanting everything upgraded. Oh, I think we need new security gates. We need new video cameras. We need a new intercom. And every
Yeah,
time,
the maintenance fees on these places can be astounding.
every month I'm getting a bill. I'm like, what's that 800 euros for? Oh, they decided they wanted a new swimming pool diving board or something. I'm like, what's that got to do with me? Like, well, you're part of the community, you pay a
Yeah,
share. So
yeah, the association.
I sold it in January and I've been delighted ever since. Now, if I go abroad, I'll stay in someone else's or a hotel and it can be their problem.
Yeah, and so I balance it that way too because it's like the place in Sydney, it's just, it's, even from San Diego, it's a 15-hour flight to Sydney. And I love Sydney. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. But then I worked with a company back then, and I had a huge team in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Japan. So I was going to Asia all the time. And let me tell you, when you can fly to Sydney first, have your own apartment. And I had my own clothes, my own furniture, my own everything there, and just decompress for 2 days and get on the time zone. And then you take a quick little 6-hour flight to Malaysia or wherever. Oh my God, so like, believe me, when I start to build in Asia again, then I'll probably will get a place again in Sydney. Or, I might do, I'm thinking about, I have some pretty, the Bulgarian line is doing amazing. I have a line in Italy that's going crazy. And you mentioned Turkey. I have a line in Turkey doing gangbusters right now. So it might be a thing where I say, well, I need a flat in London or I need a flat in Paris or somewhere. And because that's when it really makes
Yeah.
sense. And then you really enjoy having your team all over the world in those places.
Yeah, yeah, that's different. That's different. We bought a place, the nearest seaside from London, which is like an hour and 20 minutes in the car. We bought a place there a year or so ago, instead of the Spain place. And people are like, what do you mean you bought a place in England instead of Spain? That's ridiculous. I'm like, no, it's an hour and 20 minutes in the car, no airports, no queuing at the passport security, no having to then wait in the line for the hire car. And I can take my dogs and we can be on the beach in an hour and a half. Like for me, that's life, that's lifestyle.
That's the key two words there were no airports. And then you could add three more, take my dog, right? That's um, that's what I hope people in this who listen to this, who eavesdrop in on us, I hope they recognize how important it is if you start with the end in mind, which is, okay, what does my ideal lifestyle look like?
Mm.
It's great going across stage and getting those pins. It's great getting those big bonus checks. But what does your day to day look like?
Mm.
And I filter everything through lifestyle now, just everything. There's just, um, I'm really excited with the way I've been able to incorporate live streaming and
Yeah.
tech platforms like our mobile app and stuff so that I really can have a huge team and I can have them split up all over the world in a lot of places and do like a fifth of the travel that I used to do maybe up to 2020, before the pandemic. I mean, I was just doing crazy air miles.
Every other Instagram or Facebook post of yours pre-pandemic was you sitting on an aeroplane, like
100%.
all the time. You don't
Yeah.
really see that. I think you're probably not on social as much anyway. I don't know, but
Yeah,
um,
I'm pretty much off it. I am a social media producer. I'm not a consumer. In other words, okay, it makes sense for my business. I need to be on social, but I can't allow my consciousness to get infected with the hate and the polarization and the judgment and the virtue signaling and the just crazy, stupid stuff that's all over that. So I'm literally 15 minutes a day. I put on my post to get there. Um, like it's funny. We could talk about this. This is one of the things I didn't think of, but it'd be good. I was challenging myself, where am I changing my mind on something recently? What am I looking at differently recently? And social media is definitely falls into that category because one of the breakthroughs for my team was I got out the messaging. No one in this team is allowed to buy a $477 ebook or coaching program or seminar on social media ever again.
yeah,
If you do, I'm going to hunt you down and hurt you,
yeah.
because I can tell you what the courses are going to be and you don't want them.
Mm,
Course
mm,
number one is how to be a content creator and be like Gary Vee and take a piece of content and turn it into 17 different pieces and film 20 pieces a day. So you have 185 posts every day across the 7 big platforms. That ain't going to duplicate. Forget about it.
yeah,
The next one is how to do search engine optimization and how you can game the algorithms. And no, forget about it. Whatever you learned this week in the $500 ebook, Google's going to change the algorithm in a month and it's all worthless anyway. And
yeah,
it doesn't duplicate. And no to the, okay, I've got this course, and what I do is I follow 100 new people every day, and I like 200 posts every day, and I comment 20 times each day, and I make 5 posts, and I divide my posts into these different categories. No, it can't duplicate. And then all the while I was migrating that way, I was also migrating that I just, I created a term for it. I call it X brain. And it's
mm.
what happens when people spend too much time on Twitter. It's like they go down this rabbit hole. It's like what happens to people who become conspiracy theorists. And I don't want to throw that around too much because that's like that that word. As I was listening to, who was it? Bill Gurley, I think, was talking about how that's been weaponized, that word. And I don't want to weaponize that word, but there really is a cohort of conspiracy theorists, and they
Yeah,
go down the rabbit hole on social media, and there doesn't appear to be a cure because you
yeah,
can't disprove a negative. So they say, no, no, no. I read on Twitter from a very credible source that there are little green men on the moon. And I could say, here's the telescope. We can prove to you there's no little green men on the moon. And they say, no, but they're invisible. That's why
yeah.
you can't see them. That's why I read this because I told that to the guy. And he said, don't you know they're invisible when the camera's on?
And I bet you bought a mainstream telescope because that's got blocking sensors in there to stop you seeing it that Bill Gates has injected into it.
Right. So I just realized, okay, there really is a cohort of people like that, and you can't you can't save them. So I haven't found a way to save them that I know. And so this is becoming more and more and more on Twitter, and the algorithms become stronger and stronger and stronger. And I have been fascinated to see people that with IQs of very high IQs who have developed X brain because they're on Twitter for 5, 6 hours a day and they get so much algorithmic feedback to reinforce their things. So I see just rationally logical, intelligent people taking these political stances, which are so when the like a really bright venture capital guy, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, so I won't say any names, but this is one of the true geniuses of our time. If I had to guess his IQ, I'd say he's in the 150 to 160 range, really bright guy. And so I just watched his posts over the last 2 years, and then so he had a post like, this is the truth about the Democrats. They want to destroy the country, and you can see the same thing with liberal people saying that about the MAGA people or the whatever. But I'm like, do you really believe the Democratic National Committee, the senators, the people running for president, you really believe they want to destroy America? And they do. They really believe that because once they post that, there's 800 people who say, yes, you're so right. That's exactly what they want to do. Let me show you this link of this crazy state assembly woman in Georgia who said this. And let me show you this link about this wacko, batshit crazy guy in Detroit who said that. And they get so much reinforcement that they are puppets. They're robots. They really have lost the ability for critical thinking. And one of the things I felt, I don't remember if it's Mad Genius. I think it's in my Mad Genius book. I say the higher your IQ is, the easier it is to become intellectually lazy.
Yeah, yeah,
And I know that because have a very high IQ and I have a very natural tendency to get intellectually lazy. And I
mm,
see it in other people. And so I have come to the current belief that social media is one of the most destructive forces on earth at this moment in time in 2024, 2025. I really
mm,
believe that. And I also believe my business, I built my business through social media. Not so much my network marketing business, but I will say I made at least $3 or $4 million in income from bonus checks from volume created by people that I met on social media. So I do believe that. But I made many millions more in my other business as an author and a speaker by being on social media. I basically built my speaking practice on Twitter and YouTube and turned that into multi-million-dollar practice. So I recognize, I need to be on there. But now, like I say, I've made myself a creator, but not a consumer.
mm,
Even like, because my own thought was, well, just unfollow the crazy people, and then you're going to get the benefit of the good people. But the problem is, it doesn't work anymore because even the good people, they've developed X brain where they've lost the ability for critical thinking. They're
mm,
just responding to and they get the trolls and the people attacking them, and then they attack back and they get in the argument. So even though I'm following somebody with a real high IQ who's got a visionary purpose in the world and they're doing great things, and I would love to collaborate with them on some kind of a project here or there or somewhere. I'm like, I can't follow their posts because they get dragged into the
yeah,
ditch all the time. And so now I'm like, for my team, and Jaime and I are we've been working on this at Duplication Nation that, okay, because what I've taught my team is be on there organically.
Yeah.
If you have a system of you follow 100 people a day and you like 75 posts and you make 15, you're just a phony. You're a robot and you got commission breath. People are going to smell that even over the internet from 100 miles away. But if you will, so we've been training them, here's how to be on organically. Here's the kind of photo you should use. It's like, seriously, you thought that the best picture of you is the one where you're holding the 64-ounce schooner of beer, at the circuit party? Is that really your profile pic you want to have? So we're like, here's the kind of pic you want to have. Here's the kind of bio you want to have. And then pick your true interest and just be on organically. And one of the things Jaime and I were just talking about is, okay, now we feel like we could probably teach people how to be on Facebook organically. And then when you have a post that shows viral potential, that you could invest $5 to boost that post. And that, you could do that amount of advertising. And that could be duplicated by somebody. And so that's like what we're kind of experimenting with now. And it's always about, you always have to go back to, it doesn't matter if it works, that what matters is, does it duplicate?
Yeah. I was caught up, or not caught up, like we all go through phases. But do you remember when like Periscope was around and you were doing
Loved it.
yeah, you were doing it and you were getting like
every day. I did a Periscope every day.
And then you were getting like 5,000 people watch. And then I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do one now. And I'd kind of message you live on yours saying, I'm doing one soon and I'm going to get more hearts than you, which I never did, but it was a nice aspiration. You'd get 5,000 people. I'd get like 500. You'd get 1,000,000 hearts. I'd get like 1,000. But it was fun. And it was really fun. And
it was fun.
And I was in the flow. And then I started doing the same on Facebook Live when Periscope disappeared. And I also got to a place where I realized if I looked at my leaders and their leaders in their WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups, they were sharing my video. They're like, oh, look, Wes has gone live and he's doing a talk about this. And I thought to myself, what happens if I stop going live? Like, they're not doing anything themselves. They're just relying on mine. Now, obviously, for a period of time, that's quite good for your ego because you think, oh, look at all these views and likes I'm getting and hearts or whatever it is. But then going back to the unimportant creation of your income thing, of course, one of the ways you need to do that is by having leaders that are leading without you, without you needing you 24/7. So I just cut it off. And for a while, I was getting people message who had withdrawal symptoms. And I had withdrawal symptoms too from the dopamine hit that I got from going live and getting all the likes and stuff. And I'd have people go, oh, you haven't been live for 2 days, like 3 days. But a few weeks later, as time went on, I started to see, oh, my leaders are doing their own thing. They're not waiting for me to do it. They've realized I'm not doing it anymore. And they're doing it. I didn't consciously tell them. I didn't say, oh, by the way, I'm not doing it anymore. You've got to. But it was that little conversation I had with myself, which is take yourself out of this and see what happens. And now I hardly go live at all. And every time I do, I get the dopamine hit back again. And I think, oh, maybe I'll do it again tomorrow. And then I don't because I've realized I don't want to go back to my leaders just sharing. Look what Wes has got to say about recruiting or retention or whatever. So I am struggling a little bit with. I remember years ago, Art. We say Art. Mention Art again. Art Jonak, because I said to Art, "Oh, I'm fed up with X and Y and Z and whoever. I'm just going to unfriend them or unfollow them." Because they just talk too much crazy stuff. And he made point. He said, well, if you only follow people that agree with you, then you're not going to hear what other people's opinions are. And I was like, that's a good point. So I've carried on following crazy people, but I'm now at a point where I realize I think I know most of the theories that crazy people have and most of the views that they hold that I don't like. And I don't think I want to see them every day. So I've now moved a little bit more towards maybe I'm just going to have a bit of an echo chamber because I don't want to see what so and so has to say anymore because I know what they have to say and it's just a different iteration of what they said yesterday that annoyed me yesterday.
Yeah, see, I I have a little different twist in art because I just don't want to follow crazy people, period. And I don't need that stimulation in my life. You know, if you look at the people that I follow, whether it's on social media or the podcasts that I listen to or the books that I read, um, I follow Pete Buttigieg,
Yeah.
who's a liberal. I follow Nikki Haley, who's a Republican, conservative, right? And I have a bunch of people on both spectrums. So it isn't about following people that agree with me. It's about not following people who are just crazy or people who are just hateful. There's people I follow, I used to follow that they're brilliant people, and I think they have a perspective that could enrich my knowledge or my wisdom, but they're so snarky and nasty and they love trolling people and they love responding to trolls and picking, and that's the stuff I don't want in my life. It's like there's a show in the US now, it's on Max, HBO Max, called The Penguin. It's a spin-off of the Batman stuff, and it has Colin Farrell as the Penguin.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's the role of a lifetime for him. And I don't even know how he does the acting because it takes him 3 hours of makeup every day to put on his face because it's all pockmarked and scarred and everything with the character. And there's some really good actors on it. And it's like it's dystopian in a good way, kind of like the Rogue One was for. I think the Penguin is to the Batman series like Rogue One was to Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's it's not for kids; it's for adults. And so I wasn't intrigued by it. It's like the Penguin isn't really a character that ever appealed to me, even as a kid reading Batman comics. But the critical acclaim was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And Heine told me, we're always exchanging TV books and stuff. And he's like, you got to check out The Penguin, man. It's really something. And I watched and it was brilliant. It's more like The Sopranos. He's like a mob boss kind of guy, and he just owns the role. This is a character of a lifetime for Colin Farrell.
What accent does he get?
Huh?
What accents he got?
You think it's Tony Soprano.
Wow.
He's like a guttural Gotham City, New York, New Jersey, guttural gangster accent. It's perfect. He
Yeah.
must have worked with a dialogue coach for 100 years. It's just brilliant. And I'm through the first 6 episodes of season one. There's already a season two out, critically acclaimed. And I said, okay, I'm done. It's brilliant. The acting is brilliant. I love it, but it's so dark. I don't want that in my consciousness.
Yeah.
So, and I do that with shows. There's some like, House of the Dragon or whatever. Sopranos was one. Like I would watch Sopranos because, the writing, the acting, it just brilliant. But then I'd like, wow, I need 2 hours of positivity to counter program against the negativity I just saw before I can go to bed, because I don't want to go to bed with that's last thing festering in my subconscious mind. And then
Yeah.
there's certain shows like Succession, same thing. I just looked at how they portrayed people with money and successful people, and I'm like, there is so much subliminal negative programming in this. I don't want to see anymore.
Yeah.
And so I just did that with the Penguin, and that's kind of these people on social media. Elon Musk is one of the, he's a high IQ, visionary person. And I don't want to read his Twitter feed. It's
Mm.
just negative trolling. It's reinforcing just a bunch of really terrible mind viruses. And it's just not uplifting. So I'd rather choose to watch when he's doing something about SpaceX or he's in a thing about Neuralink and see the visionary side of Elon. And I don't want to see the X side of Elon.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, what he does with SpaceX, like his visionary is so incredible. I drive a Tesla. I love it. I can't imagine ever driving anything other than a Tesla. And I'm not in your country, but I find myself challenged when I read a lot of his trolling and politics and stuff like that all the time. And maybe it's a British thing, but there's still we're weeks past the American election. Like we know the result, we know what's happened, we know that Trump's the new president, going to be the new president. But there's still this kind of narky, like trolling of people that didn't vote for Trump, which is I don't know in round numbers, but it's like probably half the country. So it's like surely you're not going to spend the next 4 years upsetting half of the nation. Why would you? I don't get that. Now's the time. Like that's not uniting. Like, we got to unite now, surely.
Right, but he's lost 10 or 12 billion dollars on the market value of X since he bought it. And the only way you're going to get that back is hate, fear, and polarization. That's
Yeah,
what keeps people on social media, and they need you to be on to sell your eyeballs. And so it's just, if there's not a lot of people who are Googling um, income equality. There's a
yeah,
lot more people Googling, Brett Favre dick pic or, whatever than there is people Googling
yeah,
how solar energy can save the planet. It is what it is. And in terms of social media, it just pulls you down to the worst base elements of your personality.
yeah. I in the old days when the only thing, when we didn't have podcasts and we didn't have social media and we didn't have the videos and all that stuff, you were in the car and you put the radio on, maybe. Like if average Joe, you didn't listen to music. I listened to music, whatever. If you were listening to a radio station where you really didn't like the DJ, you didn't like what he said, and you didn't like the music he played, you'd switch it off. Like you'd turn on another channel, wouldn't you? But there seems to be something now. There's some kind of something they've put in the water. That's a conspiracy. That's a made-up conspiracy. But there's something that means that the equivalent of that today, which is being on X or wherever it might be, you can't get enough of reading stuff that offends you. But if it was the radio, you'd switch it off. Like, and I battle with that as well. I've just started a book.
Well,
Uh,
because back then they didn't have artificial intelligence to know what would trigger you to stay on that station.
yeah, yeah.
Now they do.
Yeah, no, but I'm assuming here, 20 plus years ago, that if you were listening to a jazz radio station, they'd think, okay, we have to have someone with a nice, soft voice that understands jazz, and we play the type of jazz that's the most popular jazz. Like, and we please people. If it's classic, then we please people with if it's 80s, like now it's
Right.
the
But what happened along the way is Morton Downing Jr. and Howard Stern and the other shock jocks and the people like this, where all of a sudden advertisers learned wow, there's a lot more people listening to Howard Stern than there are listening to PBS. So if
Mhm.
we want people to buy our laundry soap, we need to go with, and then for the social media platforms, Twitter's had the boycotts. They all have boycotts now and then, right? Because people say, well, like if I'm an advertising agency, I don't want my ad on Twitter to be next to some misogynistic or racist post that would create a feeling like my brand had something to do with that.
Yeah.
And that's the needle that poor Linda Yacaro, the lady who's in charge with saving Twitter, that's the needle she has to thread, which is getting more impossible by the day, I think.
Yeah. I've just started reading a book called Stolen Focus. Literally, I'm only like 5 pages through. And it's by a guy called Johan Hari. He's British. In fact, he's so British.
Brilliant, brilliant guy, by the way.
Ah, I went to school with him. I was
Did
about
you?
that's the killer bit that I used to he was a year below me at school, but I remember him from school. Yeah, really good guy. Uh, Very different now as an adult than he was as a child, I can tell you. But stolen focus. Only 5 or 6. I literally got it this morning, read a few pages, and then I need to carry on with it. But I'm already feeling like this could be quite a good little breakthrough book for me to help me continue on this path of stop giving any of your get your attention back, like win my attention back so that I am not giving it away too cheaply to social media or whatever. Because although I'm better than some, better than I was, I still get caught up in it. I remember once you talking about if what was it? If a meteorite hits the Earth, I think is what you said, I'll find out about it. Like if
Yeah.
if there's a nuclear attack, I'll find out pretty quick. Like I don't need to be checking 24/7 the news station
Right.
or refreshing Twitter every 5 seconds. And that's something that I think we all have to battle with, and we have to help our children and their children battle with. Because when I was growing up, I'm sure when you were growing up, if you were on the bus, the most interesting thing was watching a little bit of condensation drip and how long will it take to get to the bottom of the window, or looking at houses or trees or whatever. Like you were bored, but you just managed. If you were in a doctor's surgery waiting, you didn't have a phone in your hand, you just managed. You picked up a magazine or you had your notebook, whatever, you managed. Like now, none of those, we don't ever have to be bored
Right.
because we've got the phone in our hand. And I fear so much. Like when I see my sister, when I go and see my sister, who is like my bestest friend, bestest sister in the world, only sister, but best sister I could have ever had. And I go and see my nephew, who I adore. He's 11 years old. I worry for him the moment he gets a social media account. Like,
That's be another thing I'm changed my mind on. I think we have to age gate social media. And I would suggest there is literally not one good reason in the world for a child under 16 years old to have a social media account. Not one.
what? I think if you said that to a 16 or 17-year-old, they'd just say that us two are two old men who don't understand the world. But I think I might be wrong, but I think if you said that to a 25-year-old who's grown up with that, they might agree with us now because they've lived through 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years of social media, of comparison, of having to compare themselves to everyone, of never feeling good enough, of always needing the dopamine hit. And now they get it. So hopefully,
Well, I can tell you anecdotally, you are correct.
yeah.
Because, yes, people, I have 12-year-olds who think they gonna go and find someone to assassinate me because they're afraid their mom or their dad is gonna listen to me and take away their social media. And they think they literally could not live without Instagram or some of those platforms. But yeah, when I'm probably, I don't know, maybe the last 6 months or so is when I came to that belief. And so I've been sharing that in events and things. And yeah, the people who have grown up with it say, "Oh my God, I wish my parents would have heard you say that back when I was 9, when I got my first
Mm,
smartphone and I started, scrolling through that stuff."
mm,
It's just, it's so dangerous. People don't understand that your brain doesn't finish physically developing till you're like 22 or 23. So things we introduce into, like I'm a libertarian in the sense I think all drugs should be legal. I have no problem. Meth, cocaine, heroin, whatever. It should all be legal for consenting adults who want to do it. If they want to do it and they can afford it, I have none of my business. Um, but I'll also say, God, for a 15-year-old kid to be smoking dope, that is really, really bad. And there's a lot of research that shows it, and it causes depression and suicides and things like that. And because the brain isn't developed yet.
yeah.
It's different when somebody older who has a developed brain makes a conscious decision to do something like that. But no,
Mm,
and social media, this is like the social media is the gateway drug to low self-esteem, insecurity, neurosis, lowered IQ, stunted development. I mean, I could go on and on.
yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And not having to socialize, like having a fallback because I don't ever need to go and make real friends because I can sit in my room and make friends that way and never speak to
100%. Because
people.
for me, I live that because, I'm on the spectrum. I have social anxiety. So I've never been a social person. People think I'm aloof or stuck up. No, I'm actually I'm not good with that kind of chit chat and small talk and stuff like that, right? And so the pandemic, all the work that I had done to get on airplanes and go places and join things and join events all stopped. And I realized around 2022, I am getting into dangerous psychological territory of never leaving my house. And I have enough money and enough resources that I don't have to. And I realized how dangerous that was and that I had to get out. And um, that's, to just actually have to maintain a relationship with another human being outside of a phone. I had lost a lot of the ability to do that. And these kids that you're talking about, this is why we've got 30-year-old virgins living in their mom's house because they wouldn't know how to ask a girl out in person. They only know how to send dick pics on, DMs. They don't know how to have a relationship. And it's really, we've got to work on that.
There's a dating app now. I've got a friend who's looks after my dogs a lot. He's 25. He's single. He's in London for the first time. Like he came from a, very quiet, sleepy place in the UK. But he's moved nearer me. He looks after our dogs a lot. So I see him a lot. He's a really good guy. 25. And the way he has to get dates now, he won't mind me telling you this, is he's fed up with the dating apps where you have to swipe and then you have to make conversation, because there's too many married people or too many, people that just want pictures or whatever. And there's too many people that ghost you, like you swap details and then they ghost you, they found someone else and whatever. So there's this app now. I don't know what I think I like it. I think I like the idea. I mean, I'm not in the market, so I'm not on it, but put it out there. But it's like you only get 5 profiles to look at per day at, I don't know, 4 p.m. or whatever. And you
Huh.
have to either say yes or no to each one. If you say yes to all the ones you say yes to, they cannot get any more profiles the next day until they've either said yes or no to you.
Wow, interesting.
Then, if they say yes to you, it's like it asks you the next thing, right? Do you want to meet up? If you both say yes, you both pay, I think, £9, which is like, I don't know, $12 or something. And it, gives you some date options. You both choose a mutually convenient date, but you're not talking to each other. The app is doing
Really? So there's been no interaction to that point.
all you've seen is a picture and read a profile, age, aspirations, jobs, that kind of thing. Ask you, do you want a date? Yes. Pick a date, right? When you're available, times, whatever, where's your location, whatever. And then it arranges a date and says, right, you are both available Thursday at 7 o'clock. So that's your date. We will message you on Wednesday, like the day before, to tell you where your date is. So then on Wednesday, you get, okay, it's this bar in Oxford Street or Marylebone or wherever it is, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's not until about 2 or 3 hours before the date that you finally get connected so you can chat. So you can say, I'm going to be wearing a green top or a hat or whatever. And if you don't turn up, you lose the money and you get banned from the app for a month. Is it a month or 2 weeks? I can't remember. You get banned from the app. You don't get to see any more profiles until you've done the date. And
Amazing.
I think that's,
What's the name of this app?
I can't remember. I'll have to message him and ask him. I don't know.
All right. I'll put it for you guys watching, I'll put it in the show notes. I
I'm
think
gonna,
that's fascinating.
I think
The
it's amazing.
I think even
Oh, and can I just say the business model, because I think you'll like this as well. You've both paid £9. So that's £18 that the app has made, 22 dollars whatever. Your first drink at that venue is free. But when my friend went there, he asked the bar people, the whatever about the app and do you get a lot of people from it? And they said, yeah, we do. And he said, how much do you get of the £9? And they said nothing. Like, so for them, it's a loss leader. They provide a free drink each in the
right.
hope you stay for more or you have food or you come back.
Sure. Yeah. No,
But
it's
so
a smart move. It's a
the app's
smart move.
making big money.
It is. I don't know if I if I was going to launch that app to market, I think I might not make them go on the date. I think, and I think that may put a ceiling on them. So I don't know how, if that app will do well. I think they would do better with a shorter version of it where it just says, okay, you get 5 a day, you scroll through, and then, but you can't get the next 5 until you have resolved the current 5. That either so if you say, yeah, I'd like to chat with them, and they say, we'd like to chat with him, then you would chat. And you don't have to go on a date or any of that stuff. I think they could probably get bigger traction in the market, but I don't know. But either way, I think that's a fascinating app, and it's very indicative of this situation that we're talking about, of this social skills of meeting people.
I think I mean, the app is called Breeze. He messaged me back straight away. It's called Breeze, Breeze. Um, I think it's just a cool pivot from whoever the clever app designer people are that says, okay, there's already Tinder and Grinder and a million other apps where people are ghosting each other and, married people are trying to get, an affair or whatever. Like there's already loads of that. What's the problem we have? And how can we solve it? The problem we have is that people that want to have dates can't get dates. People
Yeah.
don't turn up. Um, And so it's cool. Look, maybe they'll iterate it. I don't know, but that I might have got some of the detail not 1,000,000% correct, but that's my understanding
No,
of it.
but it's a fascinating indictment of where we are as a society. Where are you? Here's something I want to talk about, and I think that's related. This is jogging me. Um, Being back in the game, um, what my perception is that more people are more skeptical than ever before in terms of candidates. Um, I think there's more white noise in the space. However, because it's silly to talk about call-in candidates anymore because nobody calls anyone anymore. They just don't, right? If you're not a baby boomer, you don't call people, at least without asking for permission first, right? The psychology of behavior has changed and you DM or text. And there's more white noise in that space than ever before. And I I find since I'm back in the space that I've been ghosted like 3 times in 5 months. Um, in the past, I don't think I was ghosted 3 times in 5 years, where they just literally would just not respond to you and like never, that you'd be having this conversation and then it would get to a point of, hey, come to this presentation, or here would be the kit you would buy, and they just, that's it, they're done, and they're never going to speak to you again. And they're hoping that they never run into you at Whole Foods Market because they won't know what to say.
Yeah.
So um, I'm working on, because I do this two ways, right? I do this as a distributor in the field, and I do this as building systems for companies and creating presentations. So here's something that I'm working on now is, and this, you know what this also ties into? Our earlier conversation on how to get yourself so you're not integral to the business, that the transaction will go forward with or without you, the interaction. And one of the things I know is that when I do presentations, I have a very high conversion rate because my belief is through the roof, right? I am that kid from a single mom who raised 3 kids by herself, who was thrown out of high school, who didn't have connections, who didn't have money, who didn't have the social graces, and became wealthy in network marketing, that, created a dream lifestyle in network marketing. So I own this. I own that belief. There's nobody on earth that I would be afraid to sit across the table from and tell them that network marketing is one of the greatest business models in the world, and that it's truly, I believe, the premier side gig opportunity against all those other things we compete against. But I don't want to do presentations a lot. Like, because if I'm doing the presentation, like we do a weekly opportunity presentation worldwide, we live stream it, and we do it every Saturday morning in Miami time. So this weekend, I will be doing the global opportunity presentation. And I hate the weeks I'm doing it because then I can't invite anybody to it. Because if I invite someone to my presentation, they never sign up because they say, oh my God, that's amazing. That was so funny. I love the joke you told about this and that. You're so good at this. I know you're going to make so much money with this. It's just not for me because they think they have to do what I did. That's why when I can use a tool, what I call an external source tool, right? Even if it's just a video of you as opposed to a video of me, if I show them the video with Wes, then I can sit down with them in 3 minutes. I can get them enrolled in a leadership pack and they're ready to go. Because they say subconsciously, none of it's conscious, but subconsciously they're saying, okay, so that's what I do. I invite my friends who are ambitious and would like to make money. I invite them to watch this video and then I show them how they can sign up. I could do that. So I don't want to be the guy doing the presentation. El problema is when I do the presentation, a much higher percentage of candidates sign up. Why? Because I'm really good at doing presentations. I'm in the Speaker Hall of Fame. I've presented to more than 2 million people. I've been doing this for 45 years. I'm pretty good at making presentations. I've learned a thing or two about a thing or two. And so I'm saying, okay, how can I get my people to be as effective as I am in presenting in the times when they're presenting? Because we absolutely, we have recruiting videos, we have magazines, we have all kind of things. We have mobile apps and we have a candidate pathway, but it's still, there's a place for a human being to
Yeah.
do live presentation in our business. And I don't think we ever want to get away from that.
Mm.
So I've been working on what I call the perfect opportunity meeting, the perfect opportunity presentation. Um, and it won't be done like when this podcast comes out and probably be ready, I don't know, January 2025. If somebody's watching this later. We're doing this in late November 2024. Um, but I've been analyzing all my speeches in making presentation and just my keynote speeches and the things I teach. Because as you know, I've done a lot of work with professional speakers, including some of the biggest names in the business, and I've helped them craft their keynotes and make their presentations. And so I've been trying to say, okay, how do I integrate that into how people do opportunity meetings and why do my opportunity meetings work so well? And I was in particular got very enamored after doing that event in Bulgaria that I mentioned when we first started because it was so effective, even by my standards in terms of candidates who were there. It was off the, over the moon.
Yeah.
And I looked at, okay, well, yeah, I told my personal story and how I started back in the day and my first home meeting. And so the thing I'm working on now is how do we bring in the emotion for the person making the presentation? How do we bring in their origin story? How did they come to know about this business? What is the thing that intrigued them to look at this business? What were the limiting beliefs that were holding them back,
Mm.
right? That their candidate might have. Oh, you got to know people. Oh, you got to have money to make money. Oh, you have to get in at the top. Oh, these things are pyramid schemes and they're illegal. What were the internal beliefs they had that they had to change? What were the external beliefs that are out there that they had to do? And then how do I take all of that and put it in a template so
Mm.
it can be duplicable?
Mm. Mm.
So I can bring somebody in and give them this framework to follow.
Mm.
Um, Here's where you tell your origin story, and
Yeah.
here. So that's the project I'm all lit up on right now. I'm working on that.
Interesting challenge. We've seen since the pandemic, like up until about 2017, 2018, I was still running hotel meetings well, we had maybe 50 around the country that were like hotel meetings that would have anything from 50 to 400 people turn up. I would run one in central London, and literally 400 people. You could not move. Like the room only held 300. Like it was packed. It was exactly what you love, seeing people standing up, because that makes it look popular. And then there were lots of iterations of that around the country, um, depending on how big the town was, like, but still packed. And then when it got to about 2018, 2019, I don't know what it was, people just seemed to not want to, they weren't going to them anymore. And sometimes you were getting like two guests turn up where you used to have 200. Like it was crazy. And the pandemic forced us to obviously start to do online, to do online stuff, because we were still being stubborn, which I think a lot of network marketing leaders go through, where they're like, no, the way to do it, you've got to take them to a hotel. And then obviously the pandemic happened, and then we're like, oh no, we might have to find a different way. So we started doing online and whatever. And those meetings in person have come back, but repackaged. They're more like, we call them like a buzz. So it's like a social, it's a bit of training, it's a little bit of opportunity, but they've become really popular because people like to get together, but we aren't relying on that for our big recruitment. It's a bit of that. It's a bit of online. We've got a brilliant media team that produce some great videos every month that are like story, 3-minute story videos. And there's like lots of things on the buffet that people can choose from. But the thing I've been really impressed with the last 6 months or so is that lots of our up and coming people, and when I say up and coming, I mean I'm not talking about the people earning 3 grand or a month, like maybe the people still only on rank 2 or 3 earning 300 a month. They are starting to run their own evening, like their own Zoom things. They're pairing up with others and they're inviting people and blah, blah, blah. And they might get 20 or 30 or 40 on, but they're doing them like 2 or 3 times a week. And then 3 weeks later, the person that joined is now part of the presentation. And they're doing that. And what I'm impressed with is that people like me, the big shots, are keeping out the way. And it's allowing these people to thrive. And yes, of course, they're going to make some mistakes, and you're going to watch some of them and you think, oh, I would have done that differently. But they're leading. They're learning to become leaders and cutting their teeth in a different way. And that's what I'm seeing work for us here now. Just like the buffet, lots of different things.
All right, I want to double click on the buzz thing. Is that in person?
Yes, that's in person.
All right, break that down for me. How long is it? And give me the exact, segments and the sequence. What does that look like?
So again, we're back to probably having 50 or 60 of them around the country. We've got a population of 60 million. It's not a very big country. And then maybe people arrive at like 6:30 and they mix and mingle, have a coffee or whatever.
So 6:30 on a weeknight.
Yeah.
Okay.
It starts at maybe 7 or 7:30. Kind of depends on the region, because like traffic and access and whatever. But the local leader will generally know what the right kind of timing is. So let's say it starts at 7. If there's guests and they do if there's guests, they do a short opportunity presentation to start with but it's short. It used to be like 40 minutes, an hour and 20. Now it's 15 minutes or so, like short opportunity presentation.
Is there a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One presenter or multiple?
One, normally 2 now, and then a few testimonies from people.
Okay.
But from their seat, generally, like standing up in their seat, not coming to the front and, whatever, swaggering. And then that finishes, and then there's normally and then they give people the chance, like, listen, if you like what you see, please stay. If not, you might want to head into the bar with the person that brought you here. Like, they give people options. I find that most people now that make the effort to come to a hotel are probably 90% in. That they're not 10% in, they're 90% in. and they tend to stay, and then they carry on and they just do give local leaders the chance, local up and coming leaders the chance to do a little 10-minute presentation on how they're doing their appointments or how they're getting referrals or whatever. So there's little training segments. They might have a little break or not, depends. And then they often have like a guest speaker or someone like me or people of those higher ranks who might come and do half an hour, 40 minutes, maybe someone from the company, and they're finishing by 8:30. That's like an hour and a half. They're finishing quite quick, and then back into the bar or the cafe, whatever, to do a bit of social thing. So it's much shorter, giving lots of newer people chances to speak, not just the old people that have been doing it for 40 years. And the buzz is a good word for it because there is a buzz around them. Like people enjoy them. It's coming together. And again, since the pandemic and the about turn we've talked about with people spending too much time on their own in their Netflix and social media, people seem to like coming back together again.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty similar to what I'm doing with our leadership academies, but the training, would it be three people, 10 minutes each? Like how much time are you doing for the training? Like how many people?
If there's no guests, then they don't bother doing the opportunity presentation. So they add a bit more training in. If there are guests, they do the opportunity presentation, which might be 15, 20 minutes. And then there might be 40 minutes of between 3 and 5 speakers who might do 8 to 10 minutes each. Probably one of them's doing a panel with 3 or 4 people. Uh, Again, it depends on the host a little bit, or the people that run it, kind of how eccentric like they are in terms of their bravery of speaking to the audience. Some of the hosts will go into the audience and say, right, we're going to hear from all the people that have had their first check in the last month, their first commission or whatever, and we're going to find out name, background, top tip. Was like, so they've got
Mhm.
autonomy. They can kind of run it as they wish, and they seem to go to each other's and copy ideas and refine it and stuff. So the company haven't put like handcuffs on people that says it has to be like this, which is what we used to do. We used to absolutely dictate. You have to do this. You have like. I'm not saying that people can make stuff up, but they've got more freedom to run it in their personalities for that area. Um, yeah, and they seem to be working really well, and it complements the guys that are doing the 2 or 3 Zooms a week between them in their teams, and then they're feeding people through. Oh, we've got this buzz thing next week. You might want to come along and meet some of the people. So it's kind of there's different options, and then for those people that don't want to do the presentations online, we've got all these company resource videos that they can send people so they actually get an information video or a story video or a video about teachers that are doing well or police officers that are doing well or whatever's relevant to that prospect. Um, so yeah, it's like, as I say, it's a buffet that people are choosing from.
So I used to say all the time that the best network marketing companies have products, not services. And your company is one of the ones that made me stop saying that because for people who don't know, you have, Wes does a utilities company. So my experience of you is it's a very product centered company, centric, right? You have people with hundreds of customers, which you don't see so much in like the wellness or the makeup space or some of the other genres that we have in the business. How is your approach? And so I'm curious about two things. One would be if you just met me and you went to we were at a self-development seminar and we were both there. And then the speaker said, okay, pick a partner and you're all going to do this exercise. And so we did it together and we both liked the speaker. And then we were going on break and we went, we grabbed a coffee together, and you wanted to introduce me to your opportunity. How would you present it? Is
So
my first, that's my first part I'm curious about. And then the second is the actual, when you do that, like an opportunity presentation at the Buzz, let's say, how much of that is devoted to the subscription service about the utilities, and then versus about building a business, being an entrepreneur, how you make money in the comp plan, leverage, lifestyle benefits, stuff like that.
yeah. So to answer your first question, if it was us one on one having the coffee after the seminar or whatever we've been to, I personally, because I get leverage and I get the idea of building a team, I wouldn't be generally looking at you as anything other than could this person be a good prospect for our opportunity for the business? And so I generally don't touch the product, the service side of it at all. And I know people will screech because they'll go, you probably lose out on customers that way. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but that's just been my approach. I generally have focused on that. And
So do
I've,
you have like a favorite phrase you use?
yeah, well, I am the person who tries to say a bit less and listen a bit more. So I'm asking them questions about what they do and how many kids they've got. Do they enjoy their job? What is it they do? And then I wait for the bit where I think, oh, they're a teacher, and I like to slot things in which don't necessarily lead immediately to a pitch. Like, oh yeah, I work with quite a lot of teachers actually in my business, and then they either pick up on it or they don't, or and then a little bit later on, like it might be they're talking about going on holiday this year. And I'm like, oh, where are you off to? Oh, well, we're going camping this year because money's tight, so we can't go abroad. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I said to you earlier, I work with quite a lot of teachers. I might be able to help you with this. I work with a lot of teachers who like the idea of having a second income alongside their job. It doesn't affect their job for a few hours a week. Maybe that's something I can help you with. Would you like to take a look? Something like that. And it's kind of trying to pick up.
Maybe that's something I can help you with.
Yeah,
That's one of those $1 million bombs in this episode.
yeah. The help thing has always been for me when people tell me something that they can't do. That's what I'm looking for, basically. What what are they not able to afford or do or enjoy, and then I can help you with that. So it doesn't matter whether it's a mum. I'm talking to a young mum that doesn't want to go back to work. I'm like, I work with quite a lot of mums, single mums. I think I might be able to help you with that. Or whether it's a taxi driver that doesn't like doing 16-hour days. Oh, I work with a lot of taxi drivers. Maybe I can help you with that. But that's always been my kind of go-to. So I've always leaned that way because, you know, I want to build leverage. I want to build a team,
Right,
and I want
right.
people a chance to build a lifestyle.
All right,
Um,
so take me through your PowerPoint deck. What's the percentage there look like?
so now as a company, our standard presentation is probably it's much more leaning to the product. So it's probably 70% showing them how it makes sense for them to be a customer, how they'll save money, how they'll benefit, and then shows them how they can earn an extra income, whether that's 250 extra a month, 500, 1,000 or more. It's not pitching the yacht, it's not pitching the mansion or anything like that. It's that. And so likewise with the opportunity presentation in the Buzz, sorry, not likewise. The flip of that is the opportunity presentation is probably 90% opportunity and 10%, oh, and by the way, here's our fantastic service, and this is why, this is what's going to help you build this lifestyle.
So
So,
you're saying there's like a company presentation that's 70% on the product, but what you're doing at this biz thing is a different, or a team presentation that's flips the scenario more toward the business?
Yeah, so almost nobody would bring a candidate to a buzz about being a customer. They would only bring a prospect or a candidate about being a distributor or a partner.
Right, right.
So it's 90% business led. Here's the opportunity. Here's the size of the market. Here's why you might want to do it. Here's other people that do it. Here's the money that's possible. Here's how it can help you straight away. That kind of thing. Oh, and here's the product and the credibility of the business and that. So, but it's 90% business led. The face-to-face one-on-one, most of our partners, most of our distributors, the easier conversation for them to have is, I've started a new thing or whatever, I've started a new business. I'm saving most people like 500 to 1,200 pounds a year. Won't take me long to show you how it works. When can I pop round and see you? Something like that. So they're leading on a benefit of, I can save you 500 to 1,000 pound a year or whatever. Let me show you. They then show them the customer presentation. So it's loaded with probably 70% customer. But then they're throwing in the fact of, listen, if you like the service, which I think you will, because most people do, and whatever, it's going to save you money. My business is mostly built on referrals and happy people telling other, people they know. Now we can pay you a referral bonus for that, £50 each time you do it. Or if you want to be a bit more hands-on like I am, you could earn 5 times, you could earn £250, and then you can earn a passive, and so there's two routes. Either you refer customers or you become an actual partner and build the business and sign them up. So it pivots into the opportunity, but it doesn't do a big presentation about network marketing and leverage and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's wrong. I don't know. But we are, as you say, we are customer focused. We've got over 1 million customers now that, buy our services, pay for our services every month, and hope, they benefit from it too. Like, it's not like they're having something they don't need. And that's always been the company focus, like building a big, solid customer base of real customers that are genuinely benefiting and, enjoying savings and then paying a bill every month. And then
So if there's 60 million people in the UK,
yeah.
okay, so if there's 60 million people, there's probably only 35 million households or 40 million households. So for you to have 1 million of them, that's an incredible market share you guys have.
Yeah, we got about 3% of the market now. And it's interesting because we are in the energy market, for example. There's what we call the big six, the big six companies. Some of them are legacy companies, some of them are new players, but they're the big six. They're the biggest ones. We could double our base, which is our target over the next few years. We could double our base to 2 million. And sorry, let me start. We are currently the 7th biggest. If we double our base, we'll still be the 7th biggest. Like, we won't be, if we double it again, I think we'll still be 7th biggest. It's only when we double it the 3rd time we break in. That it's a big market. So yeah, so we're kind of proud of what we've done in this little old UK, and 27 years now for me.
So when I first met Steve, your partner, you told me he was building his own distributorship, and he had just, I think, won the first car or something like that. Do you guys still build different distributorships? If so, or if not, why or why not?
Yeah, so I had spent lots of years, maybe, I don't know, 15 years, saying I am not going to have any relationships, any dates, any flirting, anything in my network. Not even just my network, the whole network, because that's not the person I want to be. I don't want to be seen as the guy that's, flirting around the network. I didn't think that was the way to win or keep respect. So I kept myself out of the network in terms of dating. Steve joined the business, not in my team, and we got on really, really well. And I thought maybe I have to make an exception here.
Okay, so he wasn't in your line.
No, it's not in my line. No.
Okay.
So, I was fairly sure this would be a serious relationship rather than just a flirt thing. So I was like, okay, well, let's see how this goes. And it's 10 years ago or something. So yeah, so he has his own business in another line under another leader, and he and I have never thought of merging or him coming onto mine or anything like that. He is fiercely independent. He, by his own right, is in the top. He's got to one of the top ranks, like third top rank. He's in the top, I don't know, 100 in the company, probably top 50 or something. Um, and he's fiercely independent, and that I think is really good for our relationship. Like, of course, we talk about the business. If I can help him with something, I do. Sometimes I can overhear him on appointments when I'm in the kitchen or something, and I, in a tactful way, try and say, oh, maybe if you'd have responded this way, it might like. But I don't dictate. Like, it's up to him. It's his business, and that will always be the way we build.
Yeah, because it's him being in a different line that would get messy otherwise, probably.
Yeah. But I know others that, whether in my business or other networks, that didn't worry about the cross line and just merged, but or one joined the other. But no, that's not for us. It keeps it interesting. And you know what's great as well? His success is his success. Nobody can ever say, ah, yeah, but Wes just places everyone under you, doesn't he? It's like, well, unless Wes is the most benevolent benefactor in the world, placing potential, people in your, no, it's ridiculous. So
Yeah. Yeah, you can't even actually do that with the way genealogy works. It's impossible. So you've been doing this podcast, um, kind of a very inspiring podcast of people who've really overcome some things. Um, what are you doing? Why you do it? What are you learning from it? How has it impacted you? Tell me a little about that, please.
yes, a good question. In the pandemic, when everybody had a podcast in the world, but then they stopped after episode 2, I was thinking, I really want to do a podcast. I really want to do a podcast. I think I've got something to say. And maybe for me, this was my replacement from doing Facebook Lives and Periscope. Like, this was my way to still put something into the world, but not have my team wait for it. And I made a decision. And again, this is gonna sound like I'm being sycophantic to you. I really admire your prosperity podcasts, like your videos and stuff like that. I love that, and I love the fact that it wasn't network marketing either. It was outside of it. It was a different take on it, and I'm sure that A, exposed you to a different audience, and B, challenged you in a different way because you're talking about stuff that you're not natural, wasn't network marketing. And it could have been the easiest thing in the world for me to do a network marketing podcast, because I could have just rung you and all the other top guys I know and girls that I know and say, come on my podcast, be a guest. But I wanted to do something different. I wanted to think like, so I'm doing a non-network marketing podcast with non-network marketing guests. And it's about resilience. It's called the Resilience Project. And it actually comes back to some of the things we've been talking about, today's 25-year-olds or whatever that don't believe that are living with their mum and aren't going to have the opportunities that we had, or, because the baby boomers have swallowed it all up. And post-pandemic, in this financial climate, I feel like resilience might be quite important to people. They're getting knocked down on social media all the time because they're not always feel that they're not good enough. They're not able to buy a home. Whatever age they are, they're still 35 and they're living at home. They're still 42 and they're renting. They can't have children because they can't afford it. Like, there's a lot of reasons why people might feel a bit defeated. And so the concept of the podcast, I've been finding successful people that are famous, or at least famous in their space. So some of them are actually genuinely famous. Some of them are just famous in their world. And talking to them about their dream, their struggle, their victory, but how did they overcome the struggle? How did they become who they become? Because it's too easy, I think, for all of us to look on social media or look on television, see celebrities or heroes or champions and think, yeah, but it's all right for them, you know. And so I've been fortunate enough to have Frank Bruno, who was a world heavyweight boxing champion. He fought Mike Tyson twice. You know, big name in the UK. I don't know if he is around the world, but he certainly probably was when he was in his prime. You know, and had him talking about his lowest moments and then how he overcame them. Sir Geoff Hurst, who's the only man in the world to ever score a hat trick or ever score a winning goal for England in a World Cup final. Like he's an icon in England. Him on talking about how he overcome his darkest moments. Catherine Switzer, who's an American you might know of, she was the lady that run the Boston Marathon in 1967 when women weren't allowed to run anything more than a mile, and they tried to physically manhandle her out of that race. The pictures have gone around the world. You've probably seen them. I had her on explaining. So I just feel, and then
I
I've had, you
never heard that. I never knew anything about that.
didn't know this story. Oh, okay, cool. It's a great story. Well, what she not only did she carry on and she ran that race, 22 years later, well, 5 years later, she managed to get the Boston Marathon to allow women in. And 22 years later, because of her campaigning, she got female marathon as an Olympic sport.
Wow.
Incredible. The Paris Olympics recently, she was the one that did the trigger at the start of the women's.
Uh-huh. Wonderful. Amazing.
So I had some great guests, and not always people that are that famous, but they're famous in their world. In their world, they
Right.
can still go to Walmart or Tesco, and nobody knows them. But in their world, they're a success. And just learning from them about how they have overcome things. And my hope is that people that choose to listen to it, whether they're in network marketing or outside of it, it will give them that little extra belief that you know what, other people who are ahead, who I feel like are ahead of me, they had these problems too, and so I can succeed myself. I can become a champion at this. You know, a champion. I feel like a champion. I can feel good about myself. I can grow. I can win. I can succeed in whatever it might be. So that's my podcast. And what I have learned fascinatingly is that so many of these people that we look up to and idolize go through the same shit as we do, or worse. And
Or worse.
yeah, and you know, they find a way to get through it. And generally, nobody's going to do it for you. You know, ultimately we can mollycoddle people all we like. And you talked about earlier on about some of those types of people that making too many excuses for others. But ultimately, it generally came down to them making that decision to turn their life around, just like you did when you were coming out of prison and working in restaurants and all that kind of getting shot at and stuff. And same with me in my own world.
Love it. All right, we'll send me a link. We'll put in the show notes for the podcast.
I mean, by the way, although I say it's not network marketing and it isn't, I do think you'd make a great guest because you're famous in your world and you've got a great story. So I'm putting you on the spot here, but might you be a guest?
You asked me, I told you I would do that. When you first were starting, you asked me, would you do that? And I told you I would do that.
Well, I'm just affirming it now
All right.
then.
Coming soon to a podcast near you. You just let me know. We'll do it.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. You know what? So far, it's one thing I've actually really enjoyed about it, apart from the fact I've had some feedback from parts of the world I would never have imagined that anyone would have even been listening. Um, I've now started to have people come to me who are famous or famous in their space saying, I've heard your podcast, I'd like to be on it, or their agents. So that's interesting. But
It's fascinating what's happened in the podcast space. It's if you go to Simon and Schuster, if Simon and Schuster comes to you or Random, Penguin, any of the major who's ever left, They keep buying each other and merging, but I forget who's who. But if you're Oprah or Michelle Obama or Shakira or whatever, and they want you to write a book, and then it's going to come out, they're not trying to book you on the Today Show and the Good Morning America. They're trying to get you on Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan and All Things Considered and the podcast circuit. And we saw, of course, the last election, how that media landscape has shifted. So yeah, I get probably I don't know, 4 or 5 pitches a month from like they're just agencies who just go around pitching their clients to every podcast they can find.
Yeah.
Definitely the landscape has really changed.
I'll tell you the one thing that actually has been on top of all the benefits and knowing that the benefit of knowing that people have enjoyed it and got something from it, which is satisfying. The benefit for me is it's actually taken me out my comfort zone, because in network marketing, I don't have to move too much out my comfort zone, because I can speak to people like you, or I can speak on stages and people think, oh yeah, he must know what he's saying because he's on the stage. Like now I'm having to pitch people that, or certainly when I was starting it, I was having to cold message people on Instagram or LinkedIn and say, oh, I'd really like you to be a guest. And I'm a nobody. Like I'm now a nobody again. And it's actually quite fun overcoming the rejection of people completely
Hmm.
blanking you and then following up and then reconnect and trying to do that. So it's actually quite fun as a personal challenge to move outside my comfort zone a little bit.
Good for you. Good for you. All right, you got any other burning topics you want to talk about, or should we
I
land this
got,
plane?
I got one more.
All right.
So I was in the shower. So it's my birthday a couple of weeks ago. I was 47. And when you hit 47, I know that you've hit 47 once.
Yeah, a
Uh,
couple of weeks ago.
yeah.
Or no, a little longer.
I, you become conscious of the fact, oh my God, that's quite near 50. And obviously people are saying to you, God, you're nearly 50, right? And but the other day I was in the shower and I had this moment where I thought, yeah, but I'm only 13 years away from 60. Like I am much closer to 60 than I am 20 now, because I've spent a lot of my life being closer to 20 than 60. And now I was like, oh my, and it's really started to make me change my perspective on what I do and what I say yes to. And um, like it's my dad's birthday in a couple of weeks. He lives in Barcelona. And I thought, should I go? Well, maybe I'll go and see him. And then I thought, well, he's coming over the week after. Maybe I'll just wait till he comes over. And now there's something in my a voice in my head that keeps reminding me, no, you go, you get on the plane and fly there and see him and hang out for his birthday. Don't wait a week, because there might be a time where you can't go and see him for his
Yeah,
birthday. You
yeah.
wish. So that's been interesting for me. I don't know. I know obviously you're maybe a bit closer to 60, but how does that affect your kind of decision making on what you do and don't do?
Well, I got a head start on that mentality when I got shot.
No.
And I got a head start on that mentality when I was first diagnosed HIV positive. Because when that was 2006. And, 2006, when I got that diagnosis, I called up Billy Looper, my real estate guy, said, Billy, I need to lock down my properties. I need to get a will done. I want to, take care of the people in my life. I don't know how much time I've got. Um, so it was like the same when I got shot. It's like, okay, I will never take another sunrise for granted, another sunset for granted. I'm going to live every day. I just went to a funeral 2 weeks ago. I'm just the amount of people I know who die. As you get older, that just grows exponentially. And so I'm past the point of no return. There's a point where you can say, well, I'm almost an old person, or I'm almost a senior citizen, or I'm almost going to qualify for the senior citizen discount. I'm all past all that shit now. My next birthday is 66. So when I grew up, 65 was the
Mm.
Medicare retirement age. So that was when you officially were old, you were done, you retired, you didn't work anymore, and you were just in the rocking chair. So now I'm at that rocking chair age. And it's, I mean, I'm, so it's, when I think of it from the numbers context like that, it's like, wow. But, I'm incredible health right now. Had a bad patch for a couple of years. I was misdiagnosed with something and nobody knew what it was, and just kept getting worse and worse. And um, I figured it out. Um, Tomorrow is it's Thanksgiving weekend here in the United States when we're recording this. Fort Lauderdale, we host the big national softball tournament on Thanksgiving weekend. So I'll be playing tomorrow night at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock, and then 5 or 6 games on Sunday. And hopefully we're still in it and we're going for a championship on Sunday. And I won that tournament last year with my team. So I'm really doing great right now, and but man, I'm making that's why I said earlier, I filter everything through lifestyle now. And I
Yeah.
think as you get older, you do that through lifestyle and then through significance. You just, you want to do work that has meaning. You want to
Mm.
know that what you're doing is making a difference. So I'm much more about that. I actually have It's also getting near the end of the year, so I've kind of been figuring all my charitable giving stuff this week, as a matter of fact, just looking at what have I done so far this year, what do I want to do before the fiscal year ends, and planning for the future. And so, yeah, I think it's you definitely your perspective changes as the horizon in front of you is closer than the horizon behind you. Hopefully everyone hopefully gets the self-awareness to make some modifications in their routine and their life and their vision and their actions. And so I'm all about that.
Well, I hope that whether people are 66 or 47 or even 27, that from this uh, they might, they might get that a little bit of awareness that I wish I'd had 20 years ago, uh,
Yeah.
about their lifestyle and stuff like that.
All right, my friend, it is always a delight. We need to do this more often, even if we don't record it. But you let me know, I'll jump on your pod and we'll have fun with that.
Cool.
And so thank you. Thank you for this and for what you contribute to the profession and the world. And big hug to Steve and all the best.
Likewise, it's been great to chat. Thanks for having me again.
All right, you guys listening. If you're on YouTube, I want to see you in the comments. I haven't done a good job of this. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please put a rating and a comment and share the podcast. And thank you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Find us in the meantime. I'll put links in the show notes. And of course, you can get lots of goodies at duplicationnation.com. Peace.